Hi, Holly. Let's just take 7. So I'm with Holly now. I'm the last one standing. Jeremiah. What are you eating, Jeremiah?
Tortilla with avocado.
Is it delicious? Great. So Holly is one of my main inspirations for the way I believe families should eat and what's possible. Holly, well, I'm going to let her tell you how she feeds the family, but notice we're in her kitchen right now. It's not a particularly large or remarkable kitchen. They don't have it is pretty remarkable, all the things you do in this kitchen. But they do it on a pretty small food budget, and she really feeds her family as good as I've ever seen a family eat on probably a quarter of the budget as some of the families I've worked for. So, Holly, tell me about your food philosophy and how you do what you do.
I'm very committed because I think it's really important. I have a high value for it. I see a lot of people in our culture not have a high value, even if they think they have a high value for it. So I've seen just really amazing changes in our family and my health and my children's health from doing this, and so that is a huge motivation. And then just the information I got, the learning that I took on, and still to this day continue to try to educate myself as much as possible. I feel like that's part of my job of being a good mom, is to, raise my children and be, just taking care of them as best as I can and learning as much as I can to do that job well. I think that a big part of my philosophy is that we can cultivate our taste buds and our children's taste buds, and so I don't believe in an attitude of just saying, my child won't eat that, I could never get them to eat that, like they only want this, so that's all I can feed them. I think that as parents we have the responsibility and the important job of helping not only lead them to good choices, but even just making sure that good choices are what's provided and that bad choices are not provided very often. Okay. We don't have a problem with that in this house either. You feed your children lots of good vegetables and fruits, and
they have no problem pooping.
Yeah, they never have constipation. That's an issue. Anyway, so I see it as a really important job as parents to kind of create the environment with food that we want to create as much as possible in our homes, especially. And then as they get older, teach them how to maneuver the world of food on their own and to make good choices with that. But I think that what we've already given them a taste for, what we've already gotten them used to on a daily basis, is going to make a huge difference in their lifelong experience with food and choices they'll make and stuff. So anyway, I'm just seeing that with my children, cultivating taste buds is very real, and that they will, this was the 2-year-old, so she didn't eat as much, but they will eat this food for lunch, and they will usually be very content with it and very happy, and they will eat up their cucumbers and their bell peppers and think they're so good, and carrots are sweet to them and like a treat almost. So
what's in that smoothie over there? That was leftover breakfast
smoothie. This is a smoothie that most kids and adults would probably spit out upon first taste, but my children eat up happily, even the 2-year-old, especially the 2-year-old. And it's predominantly a mixture of seeds. It's sesame seeds, flaxseed, chia seed, pumpkin seeds, and sunflower seeds that I soak overnight, and then I blend it up so it becomes, kind of creamy. And then I'll add some fruit. I'll add blueberries, and today I added I think some frozen mangoes and frozen raspberries, and then I add a high quality protein powder, I use
What's the brand? Are you looking for the brand?
No, I'm trying to think of the kind of protein it is. Whey protein powder.
Okay.
Like a good quality. It's Tara's Whey is what it is.
Okay.
And then I'll add spirulina and greens, and I put some kale in it and stuff like that. So it's not very sweet, but because my kids really never have sugar and they just mainly have fruit as their sweet stuff, it still tastes pretty sweet to them, and they will eat it happily. So, yeah, I think that's a good example of how what is sweet to my children and what's a treat to them is more like everyday food for a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can give them a Lara bar and you'd think they were eating birthday cake or something.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of other kids I'll see where it's kind of like that's just an afternoon snack or something. But in our family, that's a big treat, and dates and just all those sort of things are treats. And I make their birthday cakes without any form of sweetener besides using like bananas and applesauce and carrots and stuff like that. And, that is still sweet enough to them.
Joanna's touching it and trying to tape on it.
So what's the rest of the day like, and how do you get your grocery shopping in? How do you find the way to source high quality food on a tight budget? And what kinds of things do you? So breakfast is typically the seed smoothies.
No, that's actually not typical.
Okay, sorry, let's go back. So run me through a typical day of how you guys eat.
Okay,
first.
our typical breakfast is a cooked porridge that would be a gluten-free grain, like I'll get gluten-free oats, so sometimes we'll have oatmeal, but more commonly we'll have buckwheat grits, like cooked into a porridge form, or we will have quinoa, and we'll turn them into like a breakfast bowl sort of thing. We'll put toppings on it. Maybe we'll put like a good high quality jelly that doesn't have sugar added, or we'll do like jelly with sunflower seed butter, or we'll do sunflower seeds and shredded coconut, and sometimes we'll pull out like molasses or something like that, but that's kind of a treat or an additional
And those
thing.
have been, do you ferment, or what, do you prepare those grains somehow?
I soak all of them, and I will ferment my millet. If I'm doing a millet porridge, I'll ferment that for a few days, and I will ferment the oatmeal usually. And then the quinoa I just soak overnight and rinse in the morning, and then...
Is that all in Sally Fallon's book, all of those fermenting processes, or where did you get that information?
I don't know. Danny taught me.
Okay.
But fermenting grains is actually really, really easy. You just soak it with either like a kefir. It can be kefir water, kefir milk. You do it for like usually 2 to 3 days. Or you can also actually use apple cider vinegar to ferment them. So you just soak them in water with some of that kind of culture and do it for a couple days. And then it makes it way more digestible, and just, you get all the nutrients better from it. So that's our standard breakfast, and then...
Oh, and you juice in the mornings, too.
Yes, we have our vegetable juice in the mornings, which is predominantly romaine, celery, dandelion greens, parsley, and cilantro, and then usually, like, 1 apple for, like, the whole pitcher of it.
Yeah.
So it's not high in sugar at all. And
the kids go for it?
Oh, yeah. They're
Even
so
with the dandelion
used
greens?
to it.
Yeah.
And even some days it's more bitter than others if we put more of that in, but they're just so used to it that they just drink it. It's just part of our routine. So that's our breakfast, and then we have our standard lunch. This is our most, like, consistent thing we do all day, and it really helped also with just kind of routine in our lives, where it's just standardizing the lunch. And then our dinners are where there's a lot more variety and creativity. Oh, I should say first, though, the kids take a nap, and then after their nap, they have their snack, and they get 2 fruits of just whatever is in season that I bought at Farmer's Market. We get probably about 50% of our groceries weekly at Farmer's Market, so that's actually the most consistent shopping I do. And I usually take them, and they really enjoy that process. It's sort of a fun thing we do together. So they get 2 fruits, and then usually nuts as well. That kind of helps with the, balancing out the blood sugar and all that. So then our dinners, they do usually have a meat in them. Sometimes it might be beans and rice or something like that, but standard dinners have a meat, maybe salmon or grass-fed beef. And we a friend of mine has this term because she has 4 kids herself. She calls it stretchers. And we're kind of in the same category where it's not like everybody's going to be eating half a pound of ground beef or something, but maybe 1 pound of ground beef I'll stretch into a big meatloaf that's half veggies, half meat or something. And that's really mostly to do with just the economics of it, but I think too, like, you know, I've just learned about all sorts of different thoughts, and for about 6 months did like the raw vegan thing, and so I think just also feeling like meat is really good, but probably not massive quantities like a lot of our culture takes in. So anyway, I have all sorts of different dinners I make. We'll do tacos, and we'll do, you know, this meatloaf. There's a lot of stuff that I've kind of created based on the information I know and then what I want in the food. And so even our taco meat, I'll do like the grass-fed ground beef, and then I'll add onions, and I'll use the salad master to shred finely zucchini, and every now and then cabbage and other vegetables that just, with the seasoning, it just tastes still like
it's all part of the meat.
Yeah, like it's all part of the taco meat. And so many different types of dinners. Well, I'll like bake a chicken sometimes. So, yeah.
And tell me a little more. Okay, and so in terms of how you are able to do this all on a budget. Well, stretching the meat, that's a good thing.
Yeah, stretching the meat, that's one thing. Buying in bulk with a family, a larger family, like buying, you know, a 25-pound bag of quinoa, 25-pound bags of rice, like just being wise about bulk shopping and the way that you know, get your grains and stuff like that. And then being smart at the market, at farmer's market, just, you know, checking the best prices, buying what's in season, which, you know, a lot of people agree that that's the healthiest way to eat anyway, so you're rotating. So, you know, I don't buy a lot of foods that are not in season. They're going to be, even at the market, pricier, but when you get them when they're like in season, you can get them for $1 or $2 a pound or something. So that's a big part of it. I think, you know, our breakfast and our lunches are both like not real expensive, like the way that we do them. Now, if we were eating like, and we'll eat eggs sometimes, definitely at breakfast, but if everybody was eating 2 eggs and, you know, some sort of breakfast meat or something every day,
that'd be really
that
expensive.
would definitely blow the budget.
Yeah.
So I guess just kind of being smart with how we go about it, and how we do shopping and stuff like that. I found that just, and then also like certain stores, like I'll only go to like maybe once a month or something, and I'll buy the meat and then I'll freeze it, and because I think also it's like the less time you spend in the grocery store, the less money you're going to spend. So kind of having to be a little bit more strategic about it, so there's not as much waste. Or if you are at Whole Foods or something, and you know, buy the stuff on sale and freeze it and save it and let it last you a while.
Oh, and you guys have one of those chest coolers or chest freezers
we have
outside
a deep freezer,
too. Yeah, I definitely recommend.
Yeah, pretty essential, I would say.
Yeah. So you will buy. Do you buy a lot of your meat then, like the good quality meat, when it is on sale, and then like and then freeze it?
I get a decent amount at farmers market here too, like the beef and stuff. But as far as chickens or turkey, things like that, I'll get that at Whole Foods, and you know, I'll try to get it on sale. I don't go super often, but you know, I'll just look around and see, okay, well that is on sale, so I'll stock up on turkey drumsticks or something like that.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about how, I know especially, you know, the kids have all mostly been raised and understand that this is like how you guys eat and why you do it, but tell me a little more how you've just worked with the kids to get them to understand like why you guys eat the way you eat, and like get the things you say to like really get them on board, or like helping them understand.
Definitely, of course, the older kids, or probably all of them, but the 2-year-old sees and understands that we don't eat, you know, the way every other family and children eat. But I think that what I've seen is that there's a real strong power of the culture you create in your home, similar to cultivating the taste buds. But it's like, the truth is, every family has a culture that they've created with food and eating in their home. And so I think just like really being aware and intentional about what kind of culture you want to create. It's like if your children see mom and dad every night after dinner going right onto the ice cream or eating dessert or something, then that's creating a culture. They're growing up with that as part of their culture, and they're going to want to walk in those footsteps. But if they instead see every night at dinner there's a salad on the table and mom and dad are always eating the salad, and maybe they don't love salad for the first 5 years of their life, but eventually it's like they're around it, it's part of the culture, so they start eating the salad and want some on their plates and begin to develop a like of that. So I think that that's like really the most powerful thing that we can do as parents is like be aware and create the sort of culture that we want. I think that we have the greatest influence over what we eat. Now, we homeschool and we have a little bit more power over that than I recognize some families have, but I do think that nevertheless there is still, you're still ultimately in charge of what your children are eating a good 50 to 75% of the day. And so, take advantage of that. And then I think as they get older, like my 8.5-year-old, helping them understand, like, this is why I care about this. This is why I want you to eat these ways. This is why you should care about it. They are aware that they won't feel as good if they go eat a bunch of junk. They've experienced it. So giving them opportunities to experience it, and without making it like a huge faux pas, like just helping kind of point out, you might have woken up with that snotty nose because you ate some of that stuff last night that your body's not used to like eating, or you might kind of have a tummy ache right now because you just ate all that food that wasn't really the healthiest choice. And then also helping them learn when there are choices and how to make good ones in those, and maybe it's not up to the standards we have in the home, but maybe this choice is still better than this choice when you're out and you're going to get a treat or something like that. So just kind of gently educating them along the way, but without making it into, a real like...
Not demonizing.
Yeah, exactly. Or making them feel like they're so weird and so different than everybody else around them. Because it's definitely the hardest part of feeding your family healthy is dealing with the larger culture and dealing with even people not understanding or thinking, that you're weird, and children seeing food that other people are eating and maybe wanting that, not really understanding why they don't get to eat that. As we don't eat gluten, and so that definitely comes up a lot where it's like, Mom, I want that bread. It's like, sorry, you can't have that bread. And my husband, sometimes he's a little more lenient than me, which even though I don't like it, I think it's probably a good balance, and it helps them kind of stay a little bit more regulated and everything. But I don't make a habit of feeding that to them, and I, again, try to just help them understand why that we don't eat that. And fortunately, it's growing. This whole movement is growing, and a lot of kids are even having allergies with gluten. So they have plenty of friends that are gluten-free, or, lots of other friends that eat at least a lot healthier. And so that's always fun to be around those families and those kids. And I think it helps them feel more like, oh yeah, this is normal and this is good, and there's a reason why we do this. And that can like really kind of bolster that, that like philosophy that we have, and they don't have to feel like such oddities.
Yeah. Yeah, so how, there was another thing you told me before just about even helping them make the connections like from the day to day. Well, I think that, one thing you also said I just want to highlight is creating the awareness with them of you ate this thing and it makes you feel this way. Because, very, very few people ever relate the way they're feeling to the thing that they just ate. And I think that that's like the number one thing we all need to learn to do is listen to our bodies and how they respond to the things you're putting in them. So what you're saying is you're doing this with them from like now. Yeah. Really young. And they get it. They get the connection.
Oh yeah, they do. They definitely do. And because each of them have some degree of awareness of that we have a value for healthy eating, and we eat healthy as a family. And so I think they can already at 4 or 5 years old start to identify, oh, that's not as healthy of a choice, and oh, I ate that. And each of my children actually have varying degrees of how affected they are, which I think is very true for everybody, is that some people can eat junk and they don't feel the effects of it as much as others of us. But some of them really feel it, and they're obviously a little bit more motivated by that. But Time will tell what path each of them take, but I do think that what's instilled in us as children and at a young age will have a very strong, lasting impact. And again, going back to the beginning of, I just feel like it's a huge part of my job as their parents. Like, why would I not want to give them the best possible chance of good health?
Yeah.
I feel like eating should be to nourish our bodies. That can definitely be for enjoyment. I'm not against that at all. But my children very much enjoy eating, and so I don't feel like anything's been taken from them. I feel like if anything, I've been able to give them a gift that they still can enjoy food, but it can also provide the purpose of nourishing their body. So I've just always had a hard time from the time I had my first, even before I was really well informed. I've always had a hard time with the idea of giving him anything that I knew was not beneficial for his body. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of parents just, I don't think they're making that connection. I don't think that they're seeing it as black and white as that, and it's kind of just like food is food. You can just feed them whatever, but it's like, no, it really should be for the purpose of nourishing them and building them up and strengthening them and providing health. It should not just be for the purpose of pleasure, but like believing that food can nourish and can be beneficial and building up their health and their strength and their immunity and everything, and it can still be pleasurable. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we definitely live that as a testimony in our house. Yeah. And really enjoy food and enjoy cooking and enjoy eating, and yet I really have a goal that almost every single thing I give them would be for the purpose of building up their bodies and their health.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing that's really, really, really awesome. One other thing you were talking to me about when we last talked was the ways, like even in the day-to-day, you bring the education in, just about like if they're starting to feel sick, like we're not going to eat this because this reduces your immune system, or we are going to eat this. So say a little bit more about how you do that with them.
That definitely comes up a decent amount where maybe I can tell, or they can tell that they're starting to not feel super great. And maybe there's something that they normally would be allowed to eat in small quantities. Like my husband will give them granola, and not that there's anything wrong with granola, but a lot of it is made with a decent amount of sugar and oil and stuff like that if it's from the store. And so that's definitely more in my book treat category. Mm-hmm. And but I'll maybe just let them know that let's try to avoid anything like that is going to have any sugar in it, because sugar weakens the immune system. And then a lot of times we'll kind of throw in some raw garlic or some apple cider vinegar with water, sort of things to strengthen the immune system, or maybe really emphasize raw foods and veggies and stuff, and just kind of help them get over that hump. And then usually after a couple of days, fortunately they rarely actually get sick when that's happening because of those sort of choices. But then once a couple of days have gone by, they're usually back to the standard.
And they're able to recognize in their body.
Yeah, there was a time where Jeremiah, I bet he was 3, and he was kind of getting sniffles, and he was actually asking for apple cider vinegar
so
and
cute.
Wanting it and drinking cups of it, diluted majorly with water, of course. But
that's so awesome.
And there'll be times where they'll ask for raw garlic, because who likes being sick? Nobody likes being sick. Kids don't like being sick, but helping them make that connection that there's choices you can make that will either like help you not be sick or help you get well quicker, or there's choices you can make that will help you feel worse and prolong the process of getting well. And dairy comes in with that a little bit too. We don't eat a ton of dairy because none of us seem to do super well with it, but I will give them raw cheese and sometimes raw milk, or like I'll turn it into kefir or something like that. But whenever they're starting to get mucusy at all, like avoiding that, and I think that they can tell that as well. They can tell like, oh. Or if they're in the winter, if they're kind of having a stuffy nose anyway, and they're out and they have, hot chocolate with milk in it or something, it's like, oh. That was one that did come up, and I wasn't there for that choice, but later had a conversation about just...
I like my
had a conversation about that being sort of a double whammy because it had a lot of sugar and it had the dairy, and it wasn't really very helpful for the snotty nose and the sickness that the child had kind of been fighting.
Yeah. Okay, so this was so amazing. What is your last words, and if you could leave all of the moms.
No.
Okay, hold on one second. We're almost done. The last word and testament to the moms out there who are maybe inspired but don't know where to start, or just what would you say to moms out there that would inspire them to really take on this way of eating and make this a priority?
I think the first thing is to know that you really can do it and it's really worthwhile to do it. I think that like a lot of moms feel like it's too big of a task and it's so daunting, and like you're saying, they don't know where to begin, but I think a lot of them really are skeptical that their children would ever be able to make the leap. And we didn't start eating so much drastically healthier until my oldest two were probably 4 years old and 2 years old. Which, granted, they're not incredibly established in their eating habits at that age, but they were old enough to notice a definite difference.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't easy, but it was the fact that I believed in it so strongly and was so committed that I just kind of pressed through the trial period, and we made it to the other side, and now there's not really any arguing or, like drama around it. So I think just like learning about it and believing in it and believing that your children really can do this and it really will work, and then just kind of pressing through and pressing on until you kind of get established in it. And for some people, I encourage them to just look at it as sort of maybe a 2-week sort of thing where you're going to have like a goal of like a more, almost like a fast or something, where you're going to cut out a bunch of stuff and you're going to put in a bunch of stuff that might be new, but you're going to just do it for 2 weeks to sort of recalibrate everything, and then after that kind of take it from there, because I think that can be less daunting to say, okay, I'm going to not eat any sugar or feed any sugar to my kids for 2 weeks, as opposed to we're going to cut out sugar for life,
Right.
That feels very overwhelming, and I understand that. And then I think, you have to kind of look at your personality, because I'm way more of an extremist and I'm also very determined. So, I just had to go with that. And it was, it was a lot for some of my kids and a lot for my husband for a while. But, we kind of then like settled ourselves. But I just needed to do it that way because of how I am. But for others, I recognize, and probably more commonly, that they need a more gradual, gentle approach. And I think that's fine as long as you stay committed throughout the process. So maybe each week you're going to change the way you make a meal. And I don't think what I found is you don't have to necessarily change what the meal is. You just change the way you make it. You change the ingredients you're using. You change maybe the quality of the meat you're buying, or instead of making a meatloaf that's the typical way with the breadcrumbs and stuff, you learn a new way to cook it that it's still meatloaf, and it still tastes like meatloaf, but
Now it's half veggies.
yeah, it's half veggies and it's
without the
grass-fed
breadcrumbs.
beef,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have breadcrumbs and oil. Like there's so many times where I'll pull up a recipe online, but I'll just change all the ingredients I'm using. So instead of canola oil, I'm using coconut oil. Instead of wheat flour, I'm using buckwheat flour, or things like that. So, you kind of get good at that, but that takes the time, so don't take on too much at once. Don't be like, okay, well, we're changing everything, so this week I'm going to, bake my cakes a whole new way, and I'm going to cook don't bake any cakes for a while, like come to that later when it's their birthday or something. And so, just like staying committed and like making sure that you're always making progress and learning about new things, because there's so much to learn. And Sally Fallon's book is a great example. I picked up that book one day and I was like, this is a whole new world. And I didn't even know, even in the journey I'd been on for years, I didn't even know half of what she was talking about. For most people, making a quality bone broth is like you have to learn a whole new thing. It's learning a whole new language. It's learning a whole new everything, whole new way of cooking. And so I realized this is going to be a lifelong thing I will be implementing. It's not going to be like overnight all of a sudden I'm fermenting everything and I'm kefiring everything and I'm making all these bone broths and I'm cooking duck a certain way, and you know, and so, but I see those things as opportunities to continue my education, continue like growing in these things, and I want to keep learning and I want to keep implementing new things. And you know, I had a friend who knew a lot about cultured foods, so she taught me how to make sauerkraut. And you know, so, and we'll go through seasons. You know, I might be doing more of that in certain seasons and less of it in others, but I want to keep like learning that stuff and implementing it. And but I do know that you know, you have to take it slow with a lot of that stuff that's just totally new to you. And if you have anyone in your life who already is a little bit farther ahead, like take advantage of that, because reading about making sauerkraut was a lot more daunting than having my friend come over and show me how to do it. And once she showed me how to do it, I was like, oh, that's so easy. Like,
Yeah.
I can do that, you know. And same thing, like where I had a friend who knew how to make the bone broth the really good way, and she just told me the simple process of it. It was a lot easier than, you know, trying to study up on it on my own online or in some cookbook or something. So, you know, find friends that can help you along the way, and just stay committed.
And so, okay, so in terms of books, so the Sally Fallon book is Nourishing Traditions. What are some other, are there any other books that you'd really recommend for people to read?
Because of success I've found, especially if you're in like a poor state of health, I don't believe in eating raw as a long-term way of health, but I think that it can be very beneficial to getting out of a poor health slump. Mm-hmm. And so I think that I definitely have a couple books on my shelf of raw foods and how to kind of do that. It was also a fun thing to learn just with, there's great raw desserts, mm-hmm. And it tends to be centered around dates and some form of nuts and carob powder or something. But learning that was really fun and really helpful for my kids, you know, to have treats that were still very healthy for them. So on my bookshelf, I have Nourishing Traditions, and I have a couple raw food cookbooks, and then I think just some good cookbooks that are, they're just made using whole food ingredients, you know.
Like Paleogasm?
Yes, exactly. Which I am a big fan of the paleo diet, but we don't eat it exclusively. Obviously, you know, we eat our fair share of grains, but they're all gluten-free grains and healthier forms of them.
And they've been prepared properly.
Yeah, exactly. I think
and
with grains,
your family,
preparing them properly.
Right, and your family has demonstrated that they do well on them.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, when I'm not pregnant, I actually don't need a huge amount of protein, but I do need the grains, and it's just kind of my, you know, blood type and makeup and stuff. So, so part of it is for sure, you know, Camille and I have been on this journey for so many years. We definitely both have agreed that, you know, some of it's figuring out what works for you and what you feel good physically eating and doing, and that it is really different from one person to the other, which is why there is no like here's the how-to manual if you want good health. And so, you know, you have to like be open to trying different things and figuring out, okay, I really need a lot of meat, or actually I feel great if I eat very little meat, you know, just things like that. Everybody needs fruits and vegetables. That's what, you know.
What can I say one thing about that I've been noticing is that also it's not like this is what makes me feel good, period, forever. Yeah. You know, it's like I'm in a place, so when I started eating paleo last fall, what my body was asking for was like mostly meat and bone broth and fermented food and veggies. And that was pretty much all I was eating. And then, oh, there's juice. And then I started juicing again. And now I'm in this place where I've been back to eating like mostly raw food again. Like I've been eating smoothies and juice and like sauerkraut every meal of the day. My body's been requiring that, and it hasn't been asking for other things. And so that it's not like this black and white, even if you think you've come like, well, this is now how I eat forever, just being willing to continue to listen to your body and ask your body, what do you want right now? And if you really listen to it and let it tell you what it wants, then it'll tell you. Yeah. And sometimes I don't ever eat gluten really anymore, but I'll eat some grains and my body will crave like some gluten-free grain stuff, and that's okay. You know, it's like, but it's really, it's also not kidding yourself. You know, like, what's really making me feel good? Not like pretending like it feels good just because it tastes good and you want it, but like what's really making me feel good. And so it's like that it is an ongoing, it's your life. Yeah. It's not like, and it's easy for us to like turn healthy eating into a religion. Yeah. You know, I've definitely, you've done it, I've done it. Most people who take on this way of life, it's like, okay, I found it, and I'm going to hold on to this way that I eat.
People who are like fruitarians.
Oh gosh.
Like,
yeah.
And there's just some things that
and it becomes this dogma. And then even the point where, you know, our friend Michael, you know, he was like, I am a vegan. I'm like, Michael, you're not healthy. Your skin is blue. You know, you don't have any stamina anymore. Yeah. And then he starts eating meat again. And then he, you know, so like look at all of the places where you've created it as like this really rigid thing, as opposed to like letting your body ongoingly tell you, this is what I need, this is what I want. Different seasons, you know, in the summertime, you may want, like for me right now, juice and raw food feels really, really good. But in the wintertime, I'll probably be eating a lot of soup and a lot of bone broth.
Yeah, well, that was exactly my experience. Was, you know, okay. When I was, for those 6 months, eating so highly raw and vegan, I just started to get so cold, and I did reach, and I felt so good. I had more energy for the first time in my life, and I think it really was a healing period for me. But you know, I quickly had to learn this is not a long-term way of life, especially at this age. Realizing also I have growing children, and I am going through pregnancy and childbearing years. It's like eating raw is not a sustainable thing for if you're growing or if you're producing babies. Yeah. So I like wholeheartedly just agree and echo that sentiment exactly. And then I've met old women who eat exclusively raw, and they are so lively and so healthy, but I think it's like they're done growing. They don't really need that much protein and stuff like that anymore, but that's just not where we're at right now. And then even with the pregnancies, how different I'll feel in about 6 months after I have the baby, when I'm not having such a huge calorie drain from the nursing and from the pregnancy. I can feel this like specific shift where it's like, oh, I think I can just like eat a lot more salads now. I don't need as much meat. I don't need as much protein. And I feel really good with that. But right now, I can barely eat vegetables, and I have to eat like 5 steaks every day to feel good. But that's not a sustainable way of life either. I would not recommend that. But in the first trimester of pregnancy, that's what my body needs. And so, you know, being willing to shift and give your body what it needs. And I think that is a big part of like long-term health and sustainability with it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, what we are going to do now is Holly has made a request. Now you're in your first trimester. She said, Camille, will you please cook some meat for me? So we're going to do some paleo cooking for our friend Holly here. So she can...
And then Camille will eat her raw fruit.
And I'll probably eat your steak with you. I still love it. Well, thank you so much, Holly. I know that this was awesome. Way better than me trying to talk to people about you on a podcast. Just have it come straight from your mouth. And I'm very inspired by you and the kids and how you make it all happen. And you really are, to me, the model for how I would love to see families eat. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye.
You want to say bye?
Bye.
Bye.